This is Boston Lanka News, so bringing you news, views and entertainment from Boston and USA. I'm Vayoni Dimel. In the present-day Sri Lankan politics, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is a key player who shares major responsibilities in the government activities. He is also a polarizing figure who has wide support from the people who supports the government as well as those who commend the defeat of the LTT ending a 30-year-old war. On the other hand, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has been widely criticized by the opposition and some civil society members for country's human rights record and the law and order situation. An independent social political activist, Muhammed Fazl, has recently written a very critical article in the Colombo Telegraph about Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa titling Letter to Mr. Gotabaya, the Secretary to the Ministry Defence in Sri Lanka. We now join with Muhammed Fazl, who joins with us from Colombo. Mr. Fazl, in your article about Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, you write, "Leaders should be respected and not feared, or so I used to grow up believing in. Mere mention of your name alone creates a sense, fear, psychosis." Now, in spite of that fear, Mr. Fazl, you have written a very critical article on Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Can you explain that?
I mean, somebody has to tie the bell on the cat's neck. You see, one writer, two writers, they write something critical, they can get bumped off. But when I give rise to a lot of Lasantha Vikramatungas and all the other people who were at the receiving end from this government, I don't think they can clamp down on everybody. So I'm just a Pied Piper. I'm rallying. This is a call for people to rise up. Now, I am a Muslim. I'm 42 years. I have seen a lot. I have experienced a lot in life. Now, as a Muslim, our life does not stop when we die. As a matter of fact, it begins when we die. So, the faith I believe in it says death and birth, the time of it is determined by God, not by Gotabaya, not by the forces, not by somebody's gun. So I am not scared of this Mr. Rajapaksa or anybody. I will continue to walk in my path. If I see thorns, stones, I will take it and throw it to a side so that people who's going to follow me will not get harmed. So more than the fear itself, it's the hype. You see, now this Mr. Rajapaksa is just an employee now. He used to live in the US like anybody else. Just because he has over 1,000 people guarding him, just because the forces are under him, I don't think people need to fear. I don't think so. I don't think. I mean, if I have to die, I die. It's not as if I have achieved a lot living. So might as well be a good idea to be in the company of God's messengers, So, well, at least as a Muslim or Christians, I think that's what we seek, a better place in the life hereafter. So, while doing the right thing in this world, so we get the better of both worlds. That's what it is.
I think a majority of people in Sri Lanka believe that Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is one of public servants who can get things done, especially with the beautification of Colombo and new roads. People give a lot of credit to him. But you paint a different picture about Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa in your article as somebody who has been involved in fraudulent arms deals, as somebody who has become extremely rich in a very short period of time, etc. Your comments?
If you read my article at the beginning, the second chapter, if I'm not mistaken, I have given him credit where for all the positive things he has done. He's trying to eradicate this slums and trying to give them build them livable housing in a very organized manner, while at the same time leasing out prime land for mixed developments and high-rise buildings and apartments. So it's a good thing. As for the beautification of Colombo, I mean, the war is over. It's not Mr. Gotab is doing it. It's just that he happens to be the president's brother, and he happens to be in charge of the beautification of Colombo. So, all these times it didn't happen because we had a war going on. So any country that has funds will definitely develop. So there is no comparison with the opposition parties. Number one. Now I have to give him credit. Yes, he's doing a good job. I think he has a vision. I'm pretty sure he loves the country too. I mean, he loves himself more. So that's a different subject. But he was very instrumental in giving leadership to the LTT. I mean, to the win the war against the LTT. He was not the only one, of course, but then well, there are good things. But from a public servant, if he's doing good things to the if he's doing a good service to the country and the public, it's not as if he's doing a favor. This is his duty. That's why he's elected. That's why he has that position. So, I mean, we don't have to give him no brownie points for that. This is his duty. It's not as if he's selling his family fortune and building roads or anything like that. But when the public funds are being misused, when his henchmen are uh, they make the money out of all the contracts which are given to them without any transparency, without any tender procedures. You see, third parties used to sell arms to the government in time when the time at the time of war. So, but when Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa came in, he started a company called Lanka Logistics, and he publicly claimed that he wanted to eliminate third parties, so that with the intention of saving money for the government. But now it's a standard procedure that any arms dealer they give a commission to whoever buys, a commission of around 10%. Now this is standard. I mean, you can refer the Jane's Defense Weekly or whatever. This is a standard procedure. Now, what happened here is Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa became the middleman. You see, at the time of war, we were not allowed to question arms procurements. The sole reason being, the enemy will know beforehand what arms were purchased, and they might have an advantage over it. So, fine. But now the war has ended 5 years, 5 years back. There's no war, so now they can come clean with as to where they purchased, what was purchased, at what price it was purchased, and at the time of purchase, what the competitor what the competition was. We need to know, the taxpayer needs to know. We would have bought inferior defense equipment, which would have resulted in higher casualties among the forces. We need to know that there should be accountability. You can't just go and buy just like that. We have a country, we have a justice system, we should have an accountability mechanism, we should have an audit system. He can't just go and buy things on his own. I mean, okay, we don't have war, like there are no like top secret, like high-end weapons, where we need to keep it a secret from the public anymore. The Mr. Gotabe has a, you see, the way he operates is he he uses his influence and gives through private institutions, multi-million rupee and dollar contracts. Now, the understanding is that he makes something in return. See, the partnership with a private entity is not audited. It's not made public first. Second, none of the accounts are audited, and and a typical example is Avantgarde, a security company headed by a major Nisanka Senadipati. They protect the shipping lines, especially in around the Horn of Africa, in the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea, and it's big business. Now, this guy who was a major, he is almost is a billionaire now. Now, there is enough circumstantial evidence to implicate Mr. Rajapaksa about illegal revenues coming in. So nobody gives out contracts to private entities without tender procedures if it's not irregular. So there is something fishy here. You see, all the people who are dealing with Mr. Gotabaya and his government entities are super rich now. So I, as a citizen, I'm forced to think now. All the people around him, all his henchmen are super rich. Why would Mr. Gotabaya not have a stake in all these transactions? So now the burden of proof lies with Mr. Rajapaksa. So he can come clean. He can say, okay, this is Lanka logistics. This is how much we spent. This is how much what we bought at that time, and table all the accounts and all the current agreements with all the private businesses that he has in paving the roads, in carpeting the roads, in putting up buildings, everything. So far, nothing of that sort. So I mean, I'm you don't need to be a rocket scientist or like some CID investigator to know this. So I give him the opportunity to come clean. If you read my article, I have asked him to disclose his net worth, and and if the government salary is sustaining him, and so forth.
You point the finger at Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa about creating a right-wing militant form of Buddhism and creating the hype and a fear syndrome about a non-existent Islamic militancy. Now, where is the evidence on Mr. Rajapaksa's involvement, and do you really think that there are no Islamic militants in Sri Lanka, even in small scale?
You see, now for somebody to take law into their own hands and brazenly and openly defy law enforcement officials like the police department, and creating disharmony among communities, attacking minorities, and still going scot free. So now, if Mr. Rajapaksa is the top guy in the defense establishments, and if these Buddhist monks, like PBS to be specific, if they are running riot openly, and calling for Muslims' blood and so forth, and if they are not implicated at any stage over any incident, and even when confronted by the police, they are let go, not even a slap on the wrist. So, I mean, would it be so hard to understand that some higher up in the law enforcement officials are tied? Their hands are tied. It is so. Sri Lankans are not militant. Sri Lankan Muslims, they're traders, and we have a sizable section of Muslim community who are trying to go the educational path, trying to be graduates and stuff like that, be professionals. I mean, but we are generally traders, businessmen. So the last thing we want is to jeopardize our community over petty things. But the petty things that we consider we have been considering all this time is no more petty now. It's serious business, because our silence has been taken as a weakness by parties and movements aligned to the Mahinda Rajapaksa government. Now, this is just to attract the right wing nationalist racist votes. There is a sizable population who subscribe to this kind of thoughts. So now single-list votes are usually divided between uh, the main part, the ruling party, as well as the between the opposition party. So the next election, in my eyes, is going to be a mother of all battles. It's like a mother of all elections, because uh, there's too much at stake for the Mahinda Rajapaksa government. Losing is not an option. They have nowhere to go. They cannot go to the US. They cannot go anywhere else, because um, I mean the international community will hunt them down. There are a lot of overwhelming evidence against them. They cannot live in the country, because they will be held accountable for all their misusing of funds, the multi-million theft of funds rather. So they are using all avenues. One is to divide the Tamil votes. It's clearly evident with the recent association with a Hindu Congress, I believe, with a certain Hindu party, um creating a fear psychosis about Muslim threat, and how Muslims roaching on Tamil and Hindu land. So uh, it's all politics. It's all politics, because Buddhist monks who believe in Buddhism, they will not resort to what how and how and what BBS does. So it's no more a secret. But now, talking of Islamic militancy, I'm yet to come across somebody being implicated or being convicted of such crimes. So just because Muslims and Islamic militancy is on the news worldwide in the Middle East and elsewhere, does not mean that we too need to fear it.
And now, Mr. Fazal, in your article, you asked Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa to resign as secretary to the Ministry of Defense. Well, he was one of the key people who gave leadership to defeat LTT and to finish a 30-year war in Sri Lanka. Why you want Mr. Rajapaksa to resign?
Between you and me, and to be honest, I was much safer when LTT was running riot. I went to school. I went about doing my work. I was just doing fine. It was a case of Russian roulette. We don't know when it will happen, but we were fine. We never stopped doing anything. We went to the clubs, we went to the carnivals, musical shows. We went for cricket matches. We were doing just fine. But now I can't utter, um, I can't express my opinion freely, because I don't know when I'll get bumped off. The President Rajapaksa, Mr. Gotabaya, they are surrounded by henchmen who are thugs, who are armed, who are licensed by the government. They carry out these things. There, there are so many instances where they evict people, they take over lands and houses by force. beatings, killings, and you can even, and if you're a henchman of the president, you can even kill somebody and still not have a trial. Even the police will not write a case against you. Such is the scenario right now. So, uh, the, the if I am threatened by Mahinda Rajapaksa government, I have to seek protection from his brother. Now, I mean, come on. I mean, how can that happen? It's not going to happen. You know, I can't seek protection from him when he's threatening me. So we should have an independent officials who are separating state and government. So now we all know Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is loyal to the Mahinda Rajapaksa because he's his brother, one thing. So he will defend him by all means. Now, even when if we are to have a next presidential election or so, I strongly believe we should have an interim caretaker government to have some sense of transparency and free and fair elections. So I don't think this might happen here. But when Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa is not in that seat of secretary to the Ministry of Defense, then there is more transparency and independence that should be there. So now there are so many cases where state has been the perpetrator of violence. That is solely to defend the Mahinda Rajapaksa government, and the violence was committed against people who are dissenting against the government. And even when they are caught by law enforcement officials who are honest, they are let go. They're released without any convictions or trials. So the top person who is in the defense ministry should be held accountable. We should hold him responsible. So now, because of his connection to the government and the government's continued violence against people who are dissenting against the government, um, I think we should separate the state the security forces and the armed forces from the government. So this blood ties is thicker than water. Hence my wanting him to resign.
That concludes our news edition. We meet you again with another news edition of News, Views and Entertainment from Boston and USA. Till then, goodbye.